Renmar is not available for adoption, has already been neutered, thank you very much, and refuses any inedible chips. She has lived in the library far longer than any cat you've ever known has been alive, having floated out of a book and into the stacks. Do not comment on her fluffiness, she knows. Please provide some original commentary, if you must do any at all. Approach Renmar only, if you are prepared to spend at least half an hour stroking her tail. Any less is an act of extreme disrespect. Nobody has found her litter box and it's unwise to try. Too many have been lost to the search already. Once, in the kingdom of Suva, there was a warlock of some renown by the name of Renmar the Trabucher. A shy man, he rarely ventured outside his front parlor, and always sent his feline companion to do menial errands. Most of his waking hours were devoted to the procurement of spells of any type. Levitation, incantation, dissimulation, all were practiced behind his closed parlor door. He would often use dozens of spells and incantations in one day, disregarding magical pressure, to obtain the results he desired. His only confidant was the previously mentioned feline, who was his constant assistant in his studies and the only contact with the outside world. People of the market were accustomed to this once strange practice. Days used to go by, where they might have refused a cat access to their stores, shooing her out, as they would with common vermin. As the visits became commonplace, more and more shops opened their doors. After a few months, it became an unremarkable feature of the market. Birds flew, dogs barked, the cat retrieved its master's goods. Now, Renmar was not reputed to have very concise technique. When he performed the arts, he left a hurricane of magical refuse and wreckage in his wake. He didn't always clean up either, often leaving dangerously magical objects just lying about the house. This would prove to be a poor practice, as it led to such a great deal of misfortune for this warlock of repute, possibly the greatest misfortune in his lifetime. Now, Renmar's feline was of the curious bent, as many of that species tend to be. She would often play with the levitating portions of the incantation process, batting them with her ruby paws and leaping from object to object, using the floating islands of matter as her own personal playground. One day, there was something unusual floating in her master's lab. A misty green circle, glistening with an unknown light and hovering in the center of the room. Without a second thought, she leapt towards it, expecting to land on a solid circle. Instead, she was turbulently tossed into the air, landing headfirst into the ceiling. Shaking her achy whiskers, she looked up. Or was it down? The floating portions of the home were now suspended above her, and indeed the ceiling was now beneath her feet. Tentatively, she took a few steps, inspecting her new predicament. Deciding that she must find a way back to the ground, she once again launched herself into space, attempting to latch onto one of the numerous levitating objects in the magician's room. Sinking her claws into a floating tome, she was able to hang on to it. But the book proved to be a poor source of support. Soon, she found her velocity carrying her throughout the room, colliding with all sorts of other objects, and creating a terrible ruckus. Her path sailed towards the window. She could feel a cool wind rustling her fur as she sailed into the air, tickling her ears. Looking down, she could see Renmar's home disappearing into the countryside. Soon, lines representing the many farms and estates in Suva began to come into view, before they too were obscured by a white mist, floating in the air around her. Everything seemed to be a pale shade of blue, with some streaks of black crisscrossing it. The black lines grew bigger, and the blue grew dimmer. The wind whistling by became less and less pervasive, until soon it became nothing at all. She could feel her fur start to wander, as though it had a mind of its own, and that mind was filled with a desire to wander from the body. As she looked up into the gaping black abyss rapidly growing above her, she could see small dots of light. Hundreds of them, painting a brilliant canvas of light spots across the sky. Nobody in Suva, or anywhere else, knows what happened to Renmar after that. Some people say he left to search the earth for his lost companion. Other men claim that he left to the stars, to be with her as they saw the heavens. All that they really knew is, when he left, he cleaned up his home and left one note to the townspeople. It's probably still nailed to his door with that big rusty stake to this day. Gone to see her. My fault, have to rectify, before it is too late. Will return if possible. RM. This content is Creative Commons. Relevant attribution can be found in the description. Consider tapping the thumbs up and pressing the subscribe button if you enjoyed this video.